Hey guys, and welcome back to the 1v1 podcast. I am your host Vlhadus, and today I have a very, very special guest. He is the podcast host of the new Tangents and Creation that everyone's been chirping about. So, Jamie Kaos, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on, man? I'm so glad to have you.
So much. Thank you for having me on.
Dude, thank you for being on, man, and just having a dialogue and, of course, talking Ashes of Creation. My favorite thing that I love to do. So, you know, I've actually tuned into actually a lot of your stuff, like, because I'm always searching for people that are covering Ashes, just hearing different Ashes opinions, and it's always good to have like fresh blood, like in the community and stuff. And again, I just think it's just all about having an open dialogue and just seeing how just different people take on to this kind of open development that Intrepid is doing for the game and stuff. But before we get into all of the Ashes talk, I want to talk a little bit about you and your wife and just, you know, all of the MMOs that you guys have played, like where y'all started from, like all that stuff. So if you want to kind of just take it away.
Yeah, I know. I think she started way before I did. Her dad was like super into gaming in general. That was actually one of the things where she was like looking for someone that she would date. She was like, I have to marry someone who knows computers. So that was like the first time I offered to build her a computer. She was like, this one. And yeah, I think she had started off like playing Ultima Online.
Dang.
I didn't really start getting into playing MMOs until I think it was Age of Camelot, but I think it was the first time I bought a game. I install it, and I realized, I'm like, why does this have a subscription? Like, what do you mean I have to pay for this? And I was so bummed. I'm pretty sure that just sat there. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it just sat there. And then my cousin and I remember we play a lot of Warcraft 3, and he's like, have you heard of that Blizzard's making an MMO? And I was like, what? What's that? And then we're talking about it a bit more. And now I'm like, oh, that's what that game with the subscription was. Right. So yeah, so the WoW was like my first foray into like playing MMOs. And back then, I think when I started, it was before Burning Crusade. So it was vanilla. I sucked back then. I had no idea what I was doing.
We all did.
I'm pretty sure.
It was great.
I'm pretty sure like I never got past like level 30 when I first started playing MMOs or playing WoW. And then years later, I dabbled in a couple other ones, none that were very notable or anything I could remember. Then once Annie and I got together, I was like, have you ever played WoW? No. So we hopped on like this private server. And I think that one was set for like Wrath of the Lich King, and we were playing it for a while. And I think around that time, Cataclysm was going to come out. It's like, do you want to hop over to retail and we can start playing that? So I kind of dragged her in that. And then in between there, I think we were playing Dungeons and Dragons online. I try to remember some other games that we played. Not just MMOs, but a lot of MMO games. That's kind of a lot of stuff that we look for when we're going to find games. I don't mind too much playing some single player games, but I'm like, hey, we should play this. And it's like a side by side.
Right.
Where we start playing, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So then, so we always really try to find games we can play together. And then I think after we kind of fell out of love with WoW, we were trying all these every free-to-play games. I remember I played like, was it Alids or something like that? It's like the Russian like WoW clone, which really is interesting. A pretty fun game. Yeah, that one wasn't too bad. And then we also played Neverwinter. We played Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2. I played the original Guild Wars. So I remember we played Aeon. I swear, if there was a game and it had a private server too, like we were testing every single one because we love MMOs, but with the current state of them, like I remember we tried it was years later, we tried EverQuest 2, and I was like, I could kind of get it at the time, but right now it's not really for me. And then most recently, I had finally it was the first time fighting ArcAge, and it was like before like everyone started talking about ArcAge, and I was like, they must have been doing something where it was like people were it was getting people's attention. I'm like, man, this could have been such an amazing game if it didn't have really bad producer or distributors or whatever the issue was.
Right.
Because I remember playing that one, and then I was like, man, I can really understand where Steven's getting a lot of his inspiration for Ashes and stuff. I did try playing Lineage too. I didn't like it. I really disliked Lineage.
Yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea either. I remember playing that one, and it was there was actual like you died and experienced debt or like experienced loss and stuff like that. People can come and loot your bodies. Heck no.
I tried like this year, so I was like, man, this is too dated for me. I can't.
Yeah.
It's like I try not to be too much of like a graphic snob, but it is a thing where I'm like, I can't look at this. I can't do it.
Yeah, no, and I'm the same way. It's like it's the same reason why when I look at something like Pantheon, it's clearly for a very niche audience who really loves EverQuest 2. But I look at those graphics and I think it's like 1999 Ultima Online resurrection kind of thing, like
running off a PlayStation 1.
Yeah, basically. So it's just again, it's just not my cup of tea. Y'all have tremendous experience of MMORPGs on y'all's belt. That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know for myself, like I kind of wish that I had more because, I played a lot of theme park games. Like, so WoW was kind of like my main thing for 15 years. But there was times where I tried, like, I remember playing SWTOR and that came out. I played, Final Fantasy 14. I played Guild Wars 2 very recently. That game's also not for me either. I also tried Elder Scrolls Online, and that game just I can't get into it. Like as much as I try, like I got up to like level 9, and I played that game for like 3 hours with a friend of mine, and me and him were both on the same page of just not getting into it. Like we were just there battling stuff, and I was like, "Do you feel like playing still?" And he's like, "Nah." It's like I was like, "All right," But it was those kinds of experience. But go ahead.
Annie and I with Elder Scrolls Online, I remember because I typically tank.
Okay.
I remember we were kind of starting to do the story, and then I was like, "You want to just like tank all the way up to max?" And then we did that, and then we got like the daily cycle. I'm like, I'm just doing chores now. So that's filling that one for me.
And it was like the same thing with WoW, like but I was so used to it. Like they almost kind of mentally trained me to do dailies, throughout the times of expansions. I never really took a break from WoW. There was times I took like a 2-month break or a 3-month break, but I always came back for every single patch. And in Shadowlands, it was just kind of at that point where the MMO genre felt to me that it was just so stale and just lifeless in a sense. And the only kind of beacon really, and this is before the whole Asmongold moving to Final Fantasy 14. I loved Final Fantasy 14 in the very beginning. I played Shadowbringers. I did the whole story all before Asmongold played it. And I thought, this is an MMO that knows what it is and does not stray from its vision. You know what I mean? Like it's all about its story. It knows it very well, but the raiding, doing the extremes are all really freaking fun. I'm not a fan of the very procedural questing, you know what I mean, and the fact you have to talk to this person, because it is very story centric basically. But again, like for the people who do love it, it is really, really awesome. And I think Final Fantasy 14 does have a pretty amazing community that it's built when it comes to like player housing and just like nightclubs, and just the whole housing scene is just really intense. And I just think to myself with Ashes, like, is it really going to be like this medieval times kind of thing where where people are going to be at different like bars and just chilling and playing like bar games and stuff? Like, I'm just really curious to what's going to really evolve with Ashes and what people actually want from it. I
know they have talked about having like the tavern games and
right.
what people want in there, and we've even had people joke about about me telling like some of my more personal stories like in a tavern. Like, you probably have everyone cracking up and everything.
Dude,
you see you sitting down with your orc, sitting back there, throwing back some beers, telling some stories. I'm like, that's also what I've been kind of like looking for in a game, is where you can, like, I remember too, like when MMOs were first popping off and you had like games like Second Life and stuff like that.
Right.
And then those kind of style ones kind of fell off, but it would be kind of cool to just have a place where that, like for WoW too, like when it was like, at least for the time when I first started playing, it was almost like it was like a virtual instant messenger. Like you would go to some place where you'd meet up with people at like Orgrimmar or whatever. You'd hang out in the town, you'd talk to everybody. I remember there are times where like I'd be in the middle of dungeon and just sit there messaging, like talking to people I'm in there with for like an hour.
Right.
And be like, all right, you want to pick stuff back up again?
Yeah.
And I definitely think like a lot of that social aspect has been lost with a lot of the games, at least from the ones that we were playing, because you can auto queue for dungeons and just, you don't have to say a word. If someone sucks, you just kick them.
No, for sure.
Like, man, yeah.
I think with
or
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I definitely like, I'm missing that where you actually have to go to the dungeon with your party, have some type of investment. So if someone is failing, you're like, all right, we're gonna show you how this works, rather than like,
right.
See you.
No, for sure. And I think with the social dichotomy, maybe it was social media that kind of played a huge role into why we're more antisocial, why we and the MMO genres kind of evolved into single player games, is because one of efficiency, right? Like there was a lot of things back then that were super inefficient, so we ourselves had to take it upon ourselves to make guilds and to make these connections and stuff like that. But now it's so easy to make connections, like, and so people feel like they can just drop in, drop out. Like Discord, you can go into any server right now for any Ashes of Creation guild and just try them all out. You know what I mean? Like it's not hard to find a community.
Right.
It's really hard to find a good community. That's what it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's a lot of like throwaway content now where like, you
Right.
have so much thrown at you that you don't have to invest in something. You're like, okay, I don't like this, I'll just go on to the next thing. And like back when, when I was younger and learning like in going online and stuff, like you would have this community and you're like, this is the one I know about, this is the one
Right.
that has most of the people I talk to. Like you could kind of over time be like, okay, I'm gonna try this. But yeah, like everything is so much more convenient. And I think the problem is too, us as gamers, is that if that convenience is there, we will probably pick it up. That's like with Elder
sure.
Scrolls Online, they have a bunch of like XP boosts, and I'm like,
Right.
I didn't want to use them, but they're there. Of course I'm gonna. Just one click. There we go. All right, I guess we're doing this faster now.
No, for sure. And so like I'm just kind of curious, like what was there a point for you that you just thought the MMO genre was like at its wit's end, or maybe is it when you started to get into Ashes of Creation that you feel like you need to kind of put in your passion into this to kind of revive the MMO genre? I'm just kind of curious what your frame of mind is to that.
Yeah, I mean, Annie had found Ashes before I did.
Okay.
And I remember she was kept like, hey, you should look at this, you should look at this. I'm like, no, I'm not looking at it. I'm like, I know how long MMOs take to develop. I knew like this thing's gonna be a long, and I don't have a lot of patience. I'm surprised that I actually am so invested in this one. And but yeah, I'm like, I can't look. And then something had happened. I think it was pre Peon video before that like really exploded.
Mhm.
And I was like, damn it. All right, I'm in. And then I remember I'm learning more. The Peon video comes out, and I'm like, man, I gotta tell more people about this. And a lot of people that were in my guild when we were in WoW, I'm like, guys, you gotta look at this. You gotta look at this. And I think at the time, like I was done with MMOs. I was like, I can't find anything I want to sit down and play. And I don't think it's just MMOs in general. There's just a lot of video games in general where I'm like,
Right.
everything just feels like a carbon copy of something else. Where I'm like,
Right.
there's not a lot of ingenuity in it. No one's really trying to push anything. It went from kind of being like a bunch of nerds in a basement trying to produce this digital artwork,
Right.
to where like corporations picking it up and then stripping it all of like that uniqueness, and just basically like every action movie ever now, and we're like, they're
Right.
basically all the same. They all have the same plot. And then seeing what Ashes was doing, where I was like, okay, that's different. They're going back to a lot of the stuff I'd like to see. They're adding in a lot of these really cool and unique features. And the more that I've seen over time too, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I banked into the right game. But I think my overall feelings for gaming had started to wane.
Right. I kind of feel you on that. Like that's why I kind of just stuck to WoW out of sheer almost monotony at that point and just habit. Like I didn't want to play any other game. Like I loved what I knew of the MMO genre, but there wasn't, it's like, you love steak, but there's no good steak restaurants anywhere. Yeah. And you love it. And you know what good steak tastes like, but every steak restaurant or every steakhouse you go to just sucks. But you're like, well, at least it's steak. You know what I mean? At least it's, but I feel like that's kind of like what I saw from Ashes, is just like, this steak has potential to be the steak that I've been craving this whole time. And
I can relate to that.
No, for sure. It is just, and I think for myself, like, I really wouldn't be on board on Ashes if it really wasn't for the transparency and the communication they've been giving to the community. Because if they were just like every other, AAA studio where they're making a great game, but they're not listening, they're not having an open discussion with the players or the community, I probably would have never created this channel and just been excited. I probably would have been excited for the project, but not as excited as I am, because of just how Steven is as a person and how he's been trying to be as transparent as he could. I mean, as today of recording, we're 10/12. So we have the AMA from Steven. So by the time people are going to see our conversation, they've already seen it. We've already seen the October live stream, which I'm hoping that it's epic and they show off some really good stuff. I don't know if they're going to show off anything too cool this month. I think November, December are probably going to be the real primetime, like kind of really awesome ones. But I personally think in October they probably showed off the Tolnar in its full glory, like a full body Tolnar.
That's our prediction.
Yeah, and
we were joking about that in the AMA, like how cool it'd be if like Steven just did a mic drop right at the end, like, oh yeah, by the way, Alpha 2's out this, just to cut the stream.
oh my
like,
god,
oh, that would be so good. I know they won't, but if
No,
you
I
did,
know.
I was like, that would literally be the mic drop of the century of like, yeah, by the way, everyone could have said it's not coming. Boop.
So
Be like, peace.
I think would be more realistic, but still probably not expected, is if at the very end he said, and guys, please stay tuned to December's live stream because we have a very special surprise for you guys. That will be exactly what I think the players need, is that hope and excitement, that because I've always said this. I've said this literally in June, May, that December's live stream is going to be where they're going to unveil not the date of Alpha 2, but they're going to either give us like a more realistic timeline for Alpha 2, or just like Q2, Q1 of next year, and give us like an estimated date of something, and then just sort of lead into what they're going to do afterwards. Like, that's what I think is a little bit more realistic in that sense.
Yeah, I could see that happening. And going back to what you had said too about the open transparency, I know there was a few other games where I was following where, you know, they are AAA studio games coming out, and then you find out, oh guys, when it releases, we're actually only releasing half the game, but we're gonna get you the rest of it. And it's almost to the point where I almost have a hard time even getting into a game without that transparent development, where I'm like, this game's gonna fail. Where the Ashes has completely changed my mind about like even watching that, of like, you know, giving the fans updates, getting people excited into the game, invested in the game. And I think if anything, if this game does do extremely well, we could see that be the disruption in the game industry. It might not be the, like, I know everyone wants to always throw out WoW Killer. I really just think it's going to be another MMO that
WoW will commit suicide like it has been, or bleed out.
Like I said, WoW will kill itself. But I think what might happen is you might see, if it excels and does as well as like most of us are hoping it will do, is that game companies will look at that model and be like, okay, maybe we should start investing more into the people that are going to play the games rather than our stockholders.
Right. I was going to say, because I know you mentioned a lot of MMOs that you and your wife played. Did y'all ever play WildStar?
WildStar, no. So it's probably going to get me like lambasted, but I'm not a big sci-fi fan.
Oh, neither am I. That's why I've never even played Cyberpunk. Okay. Not into the whole. I even like StarCraft. I'm a Blizzard shill. I played a lot of Blizzard games, but StarCraft has never appealed to me either. But the reason why I mentioned WildStar is because there is a fondness within the MMO community about that particular MMO. Just curious. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the actual opening of WildStar. It was actually a pretty successful launch. Hardly any bugs, hardly any problems that we kind of see now from like releasing an MMO and all of the issues and server blah 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 blah. Very good launch. How long do you think it took to make WildStar? If you had a guess. Now this had just dungeons, raids.
I do know about WildStar. Like I did follow it when it was coming out to release. It was just it was so weird because like I was kind of following it. I was like, that looks kind of interesting. I might play it, and then it just completely dropped off my radar.
Right.
Like I forgot it was even like a thing.
Right.
God. I'm just gonna go off of like my average thought of how long it takes an MMO, and I'd say like 7 to 8 years.
9.
Took 9? Okay.
9 years it took to make that game. And it started in development in 2005, released inevitably in 2014. Now in 2011, they announced to us this game WildStar. So if we take it into the core features that WildStar had full player housing, it had, I think, a level cap of 60. It had, I think, like about 17 specs. Like, I think it was like 6 or 7 classes, but then there was like specs like World of Warcraft. So not as many there. It had a ton of professions. It had dungeons, it had raids, it had endgame stuff, whatever. So it was kind of like a WoW plus model because, of course, WoW doesn't have player housing. And that literally took 9 years for it to come out, and actually come out, very successfully, but also with like hardly any issues. Like it was play tested. It was a lot of those things, you know? And so that's why for me, like, I understand I am so wanting Ashes of Creation yesterday, but you know, again, it takes such a long time to make not only a serviceable MMO, but a good MMO. And so, you know, if we were to take that same time frame, 2017 is when Intrepid started. 9 years after that would be 2026 of release. And now I personally still believe that 2024 is a realistic date in my head. I could be wrong, but it's only if Alpha 2 comes out next year in 2023, like we're all hoping it does. But here's the thing that people don't understand. If it comes out and it's a horrible experience, and when by horrible, I don't mean that the features are, not good to play, but it's just either very buggy or there's just a lot of issues, back-end issues, things being missing, things that are interrupting our gameplay. That's going to literally exacerbate the time of us actually being able to test Alpha 2. And so people think like, oh, it's going to be this, smooth launch and we're going to test for like 8 months and then we're going to have the game, guys. Like, it's going to be that easy. And it's like, but what if it isn't? Like, there's a lot of systems that seem to be very integral. Like, I'll say the religious system as an example. Have you ever played a game with a religious system? How do we even know? Yeah, how do we even know what a religious system is or how it functions or how we actually play with a religious system? Because there's going to be a whole node dedicated to religion.
Right.
So again, like, it's just, there's going to be a lot of things that we're really, really, really going to have to test. And not even to mention like naval, and not even to mention the entire scope of the core feature, which is the node system. 6 tiers, all 4 different concepts. We have the military, we have the religious, we have the scientific, and then we have the military. Wait, did I say that twice?
Military, merchant, and then religious.
Right. So there you go. A lot of stuff that we literally have to go in, not like 2 inches deep. We have to go like 9 miles deep in these systems. And that's the other problem. Like, if we look at a game like New World, is that people were barely even penetrating the surface when it came to the real issues. So when they released the game, and I remember Asmongold saying this because he tested religiously that game and got to Endgame, and he was one of the few people at Endgame figuring out what the Endgame was. And he was saying before the release, guys, the Endgame, I'm telling you, y'all are telling me like, oh, you're wrong. No, Asmon was really, really right. And that's what I want for Ashes. I want us to really get in these systems, figure out what's not only the pain points in the first day or first week, but like maybe even the first month. Because again, I want this not only to be a short-term success, I want Ashes to be a long-term success. So I don't know if you want to speak on anything like that.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, even if you look at the season system alone, where they want to test, like, how does a week feel? How does 2 weeks feel? How does 3 weeks feel? Like, that alone, that single system already, not only is it like, it's going to take time, but it's literally going to take time to go through those seasons to figure that out, find the sweet point, and to see like, hey, we have these artifacts or whatever that you can get that they can adjust the seasons. So again, that's more interplay of that.
Right.
What I really hope is that when we get into Alpha 2, with Alpha 1, it was more of like that
back-end testing,
the network testing. Yeah. And like kind of seeing like, can we break the server? Can you guys withstand this? And then with Alpha 2, I really hope there's a lot more like guidance of, hey, like we want testing. You guys to right. Like, you're still like, guys, still try to break the game, but also like, this is what we want you to test today, or like something kind of like that, where it's a bit more structured. I think that was a lot of complaints with Alpha 1 of like, we're here, but we don't really know what we're supposed to be doing. And other than like, we kind of see something, we'll send that off. So that would be one of my hopes. And I don't know, I'm already going into it thinking like we could be in Alpha 2, hopefully like short term would be like a year, but I'm looking like, we could be playing around this for like 2 years. Like, I'm trying not to add too much expectation of how long this will take. I know for a fact, like, games take such a long time to develop, and I think just from me understanding that, and like I followed development of other games where someone would talk about it, and then it wasn't open, so you'd hear about it at like a Gamescom or something, and then it dropped off, and then 8 years later, you're like, oh, by the way, this game's finally coming. It's like, oh shit, I forgot that was coming out.
Right.
So we got a different like viewpoint of that too, of like, I understand MMOs take a very long time, especially with one that's got so many different systems. And from my understanding too, is that in Alpha 2, they were talking about how I don't know if it's speculation from other people or if it's actually been said, where it's almost going to be like an early access thing where we're going to get a system, we're going to test that, next system comes online, we test that. Next one comes online, we test that. So that way it kind of layers rather than having it all dumped on us at one time.
Right.
Again, I don't know if that's actually been said or if that's just a speculation of it, but I think that would also be a decent way to go. But for that, I really think that the core amount of time that should be spent on any type of testing would be Alpha 2, because I know they have said that beta 1 and beta 2 are supposed to be very fast. Like
Right.
beta 1 is supposed to be like, let's put the finished final polish on this.
Right.
And beta 2 is like a week or two before launch. And they're like, okay, let's iron everything out. So Alpha 2 is going to be that long haul of like, this is where the bulk of all this testing goes.
Right.
So I have it in my head, like I'm predicting that it's more like around 2025. 2024 would be awesome. I would love to only have to wait that long, but also I have like 3 little kids, so the older they get, the more time I have to play.
Dude, I'm in the same
like,
boat, dude. Like we're planning to have another one too. Oh my god, it's kind of stressful on me on that part. But I mean, no,
I'm like, tack on 4 more years. It's fine. I am completely fine. They'll be able to heal me when we go. Like they'll have their own accounts. It'll be great.
Right. No, I totally feel you, man. Like, and to me, I have a buddy of mine who says like, oh, if they go past 2024, people will lose interest. And I said, no, they won't.
I've heard that too. I don't get that.
I don't, because here's my thing. I only feel people will lose interest in this general sense if we get into Alpha 2 and all we're doing is fighting with Intrepid. If we are fighting with Intrepid and we're giving them feedback and they're not listening, they're starting to shut off from us. They're starting to do the things that they want to do and not the things that the players are asking, or they're not trying to meet us halfway. I feel like there was a lot of, not a lot of that, but just there was so much communication in Alpha 1. Hell, they gave people the chance to root motion, split body, like had a whole week on that. Like it was really, like for me as a WoW player, I was like, holy crap, a company listening?
I know that was the thing too. Like it was unbelievable how fast they respond to network issues.
Right.
Like I remember we had such bad rubber banding where you couldn't move. It felt like broken. Right. Okay, guys, we're going to go down for a day. It comes up the next day and you're like, is this the same game? Like, what is going on? Like that was also the thing that started to build confidence in me, where I was like, man, their response time to things, they're listening to everything. And another thing too is like people even have the opportunity now you don't even have to be a backer of anything. You can go in the forum when they have all their dev discussions. You can go in there and put your input of what you would like. And obviously they're not going to like stray away from the core idea. Like it's not ever going to become a PvE centric game. Like it's going to be PvX. Like that, like those core parts won't change. But like, I'm pretty sure if most of us voice, hey, the XP debt kind of feels like Alpha 1 and you might as well just make a new character if you die. Where
Dude,
it's like,
I'm going to be honest with you. I am not a fan of XP debt at all in any capacity.
I think I'm the same way. We have an agreement with that.
I just feel like that is one old school principle to not resurrect from the past. There was a lot of great things that they did back in the day. XP debt was not one of them. And so I think there's just other ways to punish people, because that's really what it is, right? You died, therefore you should be punished. And I just don't believe in the kind of punishment that people are looking for. I think that I honestly kind of discourages to try different things or new things or whatever. It's, oh, you tried it this one way once and it was so punishing to you that you're even afraid to try it again in another different way, because if I die again, like, my God, like I'm going to be in real bad shape. You know what I'm saying? So I personally I think I'm more leaning towards more forgiveness when it comes to that, because I'm also a raider too. Like I don't want you to do, and this is like something we haven't talked about, but I feel like world bosses aren't just going to be an end game max level thing. There's going to be world bosses that are going to be at level 15, at level 30, at level 40. So people think, oh, well, all of the world bosses are just going to be max level. That would be really, really boring. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there is going to be, like different levels. So I think if you're at a level 15 boss and you die 4 or 5 times, like it's really going to discourage people from trying to kill that boss. But in turn, my devil's advocate to myself is, well, that would also cause guilds to not farm a boss all day, because it wouldn't be worth it. Unless you're that big of a guild that can rinse and repeat 40 different groups of people like over and over again or something. That'd be nuts. But I mean, either way, like I just feel like there are some things that I want to test. I mean, I'm not saying no right off the bat, but I know I don't like it. But let me test it practically. Let's see what's going on in Alpha 2. But I completely agree with you. There's so much about the core design of this game that is super massive. And that kind of leads me to this next part of our discussion is the Josh Strife Hayes debacle and the infamous video that we've seen, and honestly your take on it, right? Because what's so funny is I watched that video while you posted it in Discord, and I was like, yeah, I was watching the original 4-minute clip, and then I saw you post in Ashes of Creation, because it was around 5:00 that you posted it, I remember, and I was like, would it be messed up if I also did a reaction video too? Because
when we saw that come out, I was like, Annie, do you want to potentially get a lot of hate? I was like, let's just do this just to see what happens. I remember she got a bit anxious about it. She's like, I don't know if I want to deal with the comments. I was like, it's gonna be okay. I'm pretty good now about, like, even with a lot of the comments we've had, like, I've been very diplomatic. But you talk to me like 6 years later, and I'm like, I am gonna destroy everyone to like a molecular level. And she's like, I don't know what you're gonna say. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I was like, I want to have an actually constructive conversation about it. And then our video ends up being almost like 40 minutes. I was even told her, I'm like, we'll do a 10-minute video. We cannot do short form media. I don't know how, but yeah. So I remember I saw that, and I was just like, I gotta do it. I was like, part of me too was like, that was Pantheon. He's talking about Pantheon. I was like, that is not our game. So I was like, it's just part of me was like, you gotta correct it. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
And so here's my thing. I don't even follow Pantheon. So when I did my reaction, I came as a person that has no idea what they're talking about in the Pantheon state. So when I was like, beast taming, is he talking about animal husbandry? They haven't mentioned that since like February. Like, where is Josh's head right now? Like, I was so mad, because it's like, to me, I thought, he's not even in the ethos of watching the live streams or even trying to be caught up in it. But to me, I feel like it made matters even worse at the fact that he literally was talking Ashes and conflating Ashes with Pantheon. Like, and again, this is my whole thing, is the fact that he is, whether we like it or not, he is an authority on the MMO space, just like Asmongold is, just how Lazy Peon is. And the one thing that just really upset me about, not just what he said, because again, it's his opinion, you know what I mean? You can't, it could be a bad opinion, whatever. It's his opinion. I still like his content. I love his content. I just don't like the fact that he didn't preface anything. Like, even if you were not too caught up even on Pantheon, just say like, hey guys, take this as a grain of salt. I haven't researched the game recently. It's been a minute, whatever the case is, and then say your opinion. But the fact that he was talking about it with this like almost like authoritative like voice, and being like, guys, let me tell you about Ashes of Creation and all of its problems and scope creep and this and that. And it needs to be just like a core game. And let me give this chessboard analogy or game board analogy. I was like, bro, like, I just felt like, he did what he had to do in that moment, because again, he's streaming, you know what I mean? He's streaming. And again, it looked like he was bugged by a person in his chat.
Think so I was watching, I saw he had posted a longer video on YouTube, and I was like, come on, it's got to be in here. He's got to talk about it a little bit. So I finally did find a clip where he discussed it, and he said like too that he likes when people, he's like, I'm not upset that people called me out, because I like to be humbled when I'm wrong. Like I like to be able to correct myself, and I thought that was a really good response to that too. I don't know if he'll ever make a video about it, but actually just responding to the right. topic. And he had mentioned too that, you know, he even said, he's like, man, I hope it comes out. I hope it's a badass game. I'm excited for it, but he's like, what I'm really jaded about is MMOs in development because of, you know, being let down previously. So right. So I don't, it's not so much as his commentary of like Ashes as a whole, as much as it is of his feelings towards in development MMOs.
Right.
And I can understand, like I said, I understand a lot of the points where he's coming from, but yeah, that part of me that was like, that's not my game. That's not my game you're talking about.
When I found out, because I watched Narc's video, and then when he started talking about how he confused with Pantheon, I got even more upset. I was like, bro, Josh, dude, come on, man. Like, I was so mad, because he's so analytical, and he's usually very careful with how he positions words. But again, he's also human. You know what I mean? And that was my whole thing. Like, I wasn't like being like, God, we got to boycott Josh Strife Hayes or whatever. Like, no, I thought he had a bad take, and even he agreed he had a bad take. Yeah. So it is what it is. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like we all just want a good MMO.
Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised with the response, even with of his fans when they did comment on videos. Like everyone was very like respectful and diplomatic about it. It felt more of like having this dialogue. Obviously, there were some that were more upset than others, but even then, I kind of was like able to kind of get them to calm down a bit. We had more of a discussion. There was even one guy was like, "Should I change my comment?" He's like, "Do you want me to edit it?" I was like, "No, leave it up there. Like, it's
bro,
fine. People can watch the evolution of our comment. Like, I'm fine by that."
You should have seen my comment section. I don't know, like my ratio on that video that I put out was like, it was like almost 40% dislike, 50 or 60% like, and some of my comments were, I mean, they were fine, but there were some that were just like, you know, Josh is right and yada yada yada, and I'm just like, you know, and again, like I really don't like fighting with people, especially through text. I don't even like texting in general. My wife, whenever I text her, it's yes or no questions, or I'm not here trying to have a philosophical discussion through text. So I'm the same way with my comment section. I'll leave something short and sweet. If I am pretty passionate about something, I'll leave like a pretty thoughtful comment, but to leave those thoughtful comments for every single person and to try to get back to every single person, I just let it ride. I'm just like, nah.
It's like I found some of the worst ones. All you do is say thanks for your comment, like with like a smiley face, and it's almost like this way of being like, doing. It's like being like aggressively nice to people where that like irritates them, but they don't know what to say back.
Right. No, it's true. I mean, and again, I do want to talk about something else, but I'll just say this for the draw strife haste thing. I feel like what he talked about with core game design, and how you need to release a core game first or have a core game loop in mind. And I feel like the people at Intrepid probably know exactly what they want people to do at endgame. We just don't know it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would be very surprised if Steven didn't have some master plan laid out of like,
oh, for sure,
this is what we want all of you to be doing. This is our plan. This is that. Like, I am sure it is locked in there. In that Margaret constantly has to be like, please stop trying to spoil things.
That's so true, dude. But I want to get to ask you, like, what is the feature that you are probably most excited about? I mean, is it the nodes, or is it naval? Is it caravan?
See, I've actually been trying to ask myself that same thing, and what I always come back to, and it's something so small compared to like all these different systems. What I really love is the idea that I'm going to have this whole open world where my character is no longer the chosen one. I just get to be an adventurer. I get to feel like I'm playing like a virtual Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Like this thing too is that, like, you know, Steven's a big Pathfinder fan. I love Pathfinder, and like I can see like the influences of those systems too. And I'm like, that's kind of one of the things that kind of drew me in. I'm like, man, I would just like to play a role-playing game where I'm role-playing my character. Like, I don't want to be told, yeah, you're here, like this is your mission, you're a god now, or like it's so immersion breaking for me when, like, you know, in Cataclysm you killed Deathwing, and then next thing you know you're helping someone wrangle bunnies, and it's like, this makes no sense continuity wise why I am doing this. Like, I am a god to you and you're asking me to go get your carrots. Like, I'm not doing it, buddy.
I know.
It's like, so
go pick up my
like
poop.
The idea that right, it's like, God, come on. So I like the idea that I'm just going to be going into the world. One of the things too is like the exploration and not having and not knowing any of these things, because I know Steven has mentioned before, like, you know, there's going to be legendary weapons hidden within the world where people, it could take them years to find it. Right. And I'm like, I love that idea that, one, I don't know a lot of the story. I'm going to have to discover it. Like, that's the thing with me in general, is that I love discovery. Like, I love learning new things. And the idea that I'm going into this, because there are a lot of people like, oh, there's no story. There's gonna be. You're just gonna have to read everything, and you're gonna have to discover it and find it. It's just not gonna be spoon fed to you. And I love that. That's something that's really been calling to me. So I love all the other features that are being added and everything. But I would say that's the core thing that's really pulling me to it, and everything else is just icing on top of the cake for me. Anyway.
Right.
And another thing too, though, is like how beautiful the game looks, the character creator.
Yes.
I'm really interested in the augment system. I think that's something that ESO kind of was like, they had got kind of the roots down for that, of like what that could be, but you ended up only ever using like 2 trees, and I was like, damn, it's like there's all these cool spells, but I'm never going to use them. And I think that if Intrepid can nail that of like some type of augment, because we're going to be able to augment with our religion, our secondary
Classes,
archetype,
yeah.
all the other different things that we'll have to be able to really customize and give variation to the characters. And I think that right there is one of the things that like really, really excites me about the game.
So I feel the one thing that drives me as an MMO player is class kit and rotation and talents. Like coming from World of Warcraft, that's what I thrive off of. That's what I love to see updates on. That's all. Even in Dragonflight, like I was going in and I was just looking at Demonology Warlock. What are the new talents? I want to see all the combinations I could potentially do. Like that's what really excites me, is just the customization of my class. And I am very apprehensive about just the 64 class system, just how you're gonna be able to augment, because in my mind I can make it sound and feel amazing and set myself up for complete failure, which I don't want to do. So I try to be like as open about the possibility of it being good. I just fear that it's gonna be very basic, like we're gonna have like a tripod system from like Lost Ark, and that's the extent of our customization, and that's what I don't want.
So I can't remember how many different class combinations there are in Arcade. So the way that works is you have the first one you choose. You can change all of them. I think
Right.
there's like 9 different trees, but you can select 3.
Right.
So that whatever that class combination, that's how many. There's like over 200 something different classes.
Right.
And in that game, there were so many, because different spells would combo off of each other.
Right.
So I ended up buying a 20 button mouse just to be able to do like different abilities, have those already. So it was extremely in depth. So that's I think if a lot of people do at least try Arcade's class system and look at that, might have a better idea of like what Intrepid may be intending to kind of do with that, because it does. 64 sounds like a ton, especially if coming from World of Warcraft, where if you're thinking about like how they balance their classes and back and forth.
Right.
And I think another takeaway from that too is that the game is not being balanced on a 1v1. It's being balanced based off of
Group.
the 8 archetypes being in a solid group.
Right.
So there is going to be times where there may be a very bad matchup where you go to try to bring, your mage / rogue into, with the fighter / ranger, and that ranger might just completely stomp that character without any hesitation.
Right.
So there is going to be a lot of that rock, paper, scissors. You might not pair up. And again, that adds more to like, you're going to need a group. You're going to need people to socialize and come with you. So I'm also like wondering like how that's going to happen. But having played other games that have an insane amount of classes and a massive like rotation and having all those options, that I think that there is precedent for that. But also there is something too of like we recently actually jumped back into the Shadowlands and played WoW, and there's something about jumping back on my prot warrior and remembering the rotation, knowing everything.
Right.
I'm like, it does feel kind of good to like
Mm-hmm.
I've got these 3 set up here. I was going in, I was writing all my macros and everything. I was like, God, I haven't done this in forever.
Right.
So there were aspects of that I really enjoyed, and I think going back to it and too of like I think I was really harsh on the game. We quit like when it was like Warlords of Draenor. We got towards the end, and it was like all we would do is hang out in our garrison, and I was like, man, this kind of sucks. And I was like, it was that time where like, we're seeing more and more systems and like just really not feeling it anymore. But like we've been having fun playing it, but it's still not. I think I no longer feel like emotionally invested into my character anymore. So I'm just like, and this is something to do until something comes out. But it's again that familiarity to the game.
No, for sure. I mean, there are things I'm very apprehensive with, like the 64 class system and stuff. But the one thing that I feel is going to be new to me is a part of the node system, but the fact that every server could potentially be so different from one another. Because I think about it as a content creator and being like, I could have a whole monopoly on a server and be like the sole, like you all have to look at my content because there is no other person on my server that does content. And I just kind of like think that would be so cool from like a content perspective, but also even a playable content perspective, that like our server opened up this dungeon that no other server has opened up yet. You know what I mean? So we're experiencing content that's exclusive to us right now. And I just kind of feel that that's really freaking cool, because no other MMO's done that.
Extremely cool. I know. I honestly, we love that idea too of like, and even like, instead of having alts on the same server, you might end up having alts on other servers. I was like, okay, I gotta see what the like, and someone had mentioned too, is like, I could eventually see you guys maybe doing like almost like an Ashes news broadcast of, today in Resna they unlocked
Yep.
this, or like people reporting in like what happened to their server and just feeding that
Right.
back. I'm like, like no other game has that, and I think that's really cool too. Of like, and then I feel like that could cut because people are like, well, certain nodes are never going to get destroyed because people are just going to want it there. And it's like, man, if someone finds out in another server that there's this really awesome thing, everyone's going to be like, all right, let's tear this down. Like, everyone go for this. Let's destroy it. Let's start building the one next to it.
Oh yeah. And it's going to be like, there's going to be a lot of things that I think are going to feel very monumental, right? Like I think the first castle or node siege is going to be huge on Twitch. Like even if you're not on that server that is happening on, you're probably going to tune in somewhere to figure out what's going on. And I think that's just in itself like just really, really, really cool. Like, and especially if it's like your favorite streamer that's doing it or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I think there's just so many really kind of really Ashes specific things that could happen that no other game can kind of replicate at this point. And I just find that to be very enticing, even from like a casual point of view, because even if you are one of those people that's like, if it's PvP, I'm not going to play it. Or if it's this, I don't want to play it. If this has this, I don't want to play it. I've heard people say if it doesn't have voice acting, I'm not going to play it. I'm like, I feel like if it's a good game, you will play it. You might talk crap about it. Hell, I played WoW for 15 years and the last 8 of them, all I was doing was talking crap about World of Warcraft. So I'm an expert in this field.
I'm streaming it and talking shit about it.
So, I mean, for me, like, I could do that just fine, but I feel like depriving yourself from the experience of trying a good MMO out right now, just because you don't like a certain aspect of it, it's just kind of dumb. You know what I mean? Like, just try it out, see if you like it.
The thing too, the bar to entry is so low. Like when it, when it finally releases, you're only going to have to pay a sub fee. So you spend that $15 that 1 month to try it out, and not tell your friends because you told them the last 10 years that it was never coming out. And you're like, oh shit, I actually like this.
Dude, oh my God.
Go on Twitter, delete all your tweets about it right now. All right, clear. Hey guys, guess what I found?
Yeah, I found this game that I've been talking crap about. Oh my God. I've seen those people and they're so adamant that it's a scam and everything like that. I just saw a video from Kira TV today, not to go off of a beaten path, that there's still people that are backing Chronicles of Vlhadus.
Oh, really? Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
Dude, that scares the hell out of me right now. There's people who are backing.
Dude, like,
yeah, no, but the thing is, the video that I saw today was that the court case got dismissed. Like, he's in the clear. Like, he's not going to have to do anything or pay back anything. And so he was telling his backers that he's going to try to self-fund the rest of the project. But it's just crazy how they're actual still backers of that game.
Star System will come out before that ever does.
Bro, yes. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's the MMO players, man. Like, we have our little beliefs and our little, like, hope on hopes and stuff like that. But I know for me, like, again, this is probably the first, like, in-game project kind of game that I've ever really invested in the way I have. But yeah, dude, you have to be on some serious cope to think that Chronicles of Vlhadus will come out anytime soon.
There's so much that come out of that, where it's like, man, like you're looking at it and like, this isn't even close to what was promised to you guys. And like, I just feel like it'd be like one of us, like early on investing and being like, no, it's got to come out. Like, you can't, like, I can only imagine like how they would feel, being in that position, because I know that so many people were like, this is it, this is going to happen. And then being in that position of like, they probably know in the back of their head, it's like, this isn't gonna.
I know. But I mean, just talking about the whole like every server being different, I'm really, really excited about that. But now I want to ask you, what are you feeling very apprehensive or even downright nervous about when it comes to Ashes of Creation?
So I am not a huge PvP player.
Okay.
And a lot of that comes from playing in WoW, and also like being
true,
like as a tank. Like I really, or even when I tanked in like ESO and tried to PvP, I didn't really like the way it felt. So that was a big thing. Also like I think it's mainly coming from my experience with WoW, of like you would be questing, you got this player that's just going through killing quest givers, griefing. I think, and that's the biggest thing. But the thing is the more I watched it, like the more I've seen, I don't know what it is. Something clicked in my head when they said that the open seas were going to be all PvP. I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, I don't know what it clicked. I'm like, I want to do that. But I do have a lot of like concerns when it comes to like they really need to get the corruption system down, the
Right.
XP debt, like die. So having someone grief you and then having XP debt sounds terrible. Like
Right.
XP debt in itself sucks, but the idea if that's going to still be there for like when someone got corrupted after killing you and you have to have XP debt, I think that sucks. I really don't think that's something that they should do.
Yeah.
That's something that's always going to have to be tested. But I think a lot of it kind of revolves around that. But it's also something I'm really optimistic about because I feel like I haven't played a lot of the games that had fun PvP.
Right.
And a lot of my experiences are from being ganked. And not even so much me, just having like I don't really think I've had too many experiences where I was the one who was targeted. But
Right.
I've had times where like, you know, Annie was getting harassed by like just people that just wanted to, and I remember her getting really frustrated with certain things or so there have been times where it's like, you know, it's really not fun. But
No, for
again,
sure.
like if they as long as they can get the anti-griefing mechanics down, I think that will satisfy a lot of my anxiousness towards those aspects of the game.
So that is the number one thing all of my casual WoW friends don't want to play Ashes of Creation. This forced PvP or this PvX experience. You know, and I have friends that are like, I had a video that I put out a while back, you know, about will Ashes of Creation ever have PvE servers? Can Ashes even facilitate a PvE server experience? And I think they could.
I really hope not.
I think they
hope they
could.
don't.
But I think ultimately people want safe spaces. We've gotten very used to them.
Yeah.
That's what people want. And I just think that goes against the complete vision of Ashes in general. Like it's meant
Right.
to be Game of Thrones. Like that's
Yeah, right,
literally the whole antithesis of this game is betrayal and trusting and then getting betrayed and like internal strife and cooperation and good things and then also very bad things. Like it's this whole mixed bag of like you aren't supposed to trust anybody, but then you're all supposed to trust people. Like, you know what I mean? It's like this weird, you know, mix, but it keeps things interesting, just like Game of Thrones. That's why Game of Thrones, when people watch Game of Thrones, is because you just don't know who you trust.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to turn on who you can trust.
Yeah, it's just all over the place. And again, that's what I kind of see when it comes to open world. And I think that's why a lot of people are nervous. However, if they do the corruption system correctly, I really don't think people will willingly want to be corrupted the entire time or grief someone over and over again. Like, will you have like maybe in your 3 or 4 or 5 hour player experience, will you die maybe once to like a person that just killed you because you were gathering wood? Possibly. But you could also die too from just getting too many mobs on you. You know what I mean? Like there's other things that are probably going to kill you, probably more so than a person trying to gank you over and over again, presumably.
And that's like when it comes to my like anxiousness about it's so far down there, but that's really the only thing that I can think of in the game where I'm like, that might make my experience potentially feel bad, but at the same time I'm like, being a bounty hunter sounds pretty cool. So I mean that could be kind of fun. So there is, and like the more, because we've started playing other games too where we play some survival games, and we run private servers with them, or host our own servers. So I was like, these are all PvP enabled now. I was like, I'm gonna make sure anyone who plays, you're gonna get used to it if you're gonna play Ashes with us, because it's like, and I think that is too of if you get rid of that risk versus reward, right? Is, you know, what's the point if they make a PvE server only? You know, why do the caravan system now? Like you might as well, like there'd be no reason for that. You know, with the different mayoral systems and stuff, it's just you start to, if you take that away, there's so many systems that will degrade, where there's almost no point to playing the game at that point, because there's so much that the interplay between the PvP and the PvE have, that I almost feel like there needs to be a new, like I like the PvX, but I think open conflict is probably like a term that they should maybe pick up, because that's how it is. You could, you know, you're kind of be out in the world, and then you can just have these conflicts of something's going to pop off. And I really think the griefing will probably be a lot less, and there would be a lot more of like, you know, you're kind of running around, you see someone, and you kind of do that, you know, one person jumps, the other person jumps, you're like, okay, I guess we're going to do some PvP.
Right. And I guess for me, the way I thought about it, because even with a caravan system and a PvE server, the way I would design that as a, you know, game designer is just make it wave based PvE, you know what I mean? And even throw in some elites. Hell, you could even throw in at a potential chance, depending on how big your group is or what the heat map is, fucking throw in a raid boss. You know what I mean? And just like, now you have to freaking fight off a raid boss while you're trying to transport a caravan. So I mean, there are ways they can do it. And again, I'm not trying to advocate for PvE servers. All I'm saying is that there are a lot of people that would miss out on Ashes of Creation just because of PvP. You know what I mean? And I think again, it has to kind of pass the litmus test for people, right? If the game doesn't die within a month, which I don't think it does, I personally feel like Ashes actually stands a chance at an upward trajectory in players because of, first of all, how long it takes to level, and also because of the unique system of the nodes and how every server is going to be different. And so watching one streamer, you're going to get one experience because they are doing something on that server, and then you're going to get a whole other experience by watching another streamer. And I think that's really quite cool, even from that kind of content perspective, or even as a viewership perspective, is the fact that just because you're watching one stream and it's Ashes of Creation, you're not going to get the same things, because they could be doing a plethora of different things.
Right, you'd have one that's just a guy working on his artisan class, like working on blacksmithing, and that's all he does.
And then you can have another one that's just ganking caravan defenders, or you can have another person that's just sailing the seven seas and doing like freaking naval world bosses or doing all that stuff. And I really hope it's like Sea of Thieves. I was watching some Sea of Thieves because I never played that game personally, but I've watched a lot of content just to see what the ship battles are like, and they're so freaking epic.
It's pretty fun. We played it a few times, and for a while that was like our family night game with our oldest daughter. We would
nice.
Annie and I would play with her, and then we'd all like go. And I remember there was this, I think it was almost, that game was one of the things that kind of made me start thinking about PvP a bit more, because my daughter and I were out there and we saw the ship had docked, and I was like, "You want to go raid it?" And she's like, "All right, yeah, let's do it." So we ended up like, we took all of their stuff. They were getting so panicked. We took all their stuff. We set their ship on fire. I was like, "That's pretty fun." Oh yeah, we burnt it to the ground, man. We weren't messing around. And then I remember I was playing. I remember her little sister also jumped on, and someone tried to steal her ship, and she's screaming, "Dad, why are you leaving me on the island?" And I'm like, "Oh my god!" But I'm like, there was a lot of like tension that you don't get in other games, because there's no like, you can kind of, you see the mobs or whatever, there's a bit of threat, but there's something completely different when it's another player behind that character that creates this whole other sensation of like dread, but also excitement, where you just don't get that. And I understand why so many people really like PvP games. And I think if that's the thing too, though, there's so many other PvP games like first person shooters or whatever that I've played where like, I really enjoy it. So as long as the systems are set up right, it feels good. I think for me personally, a lot of PvP MMOs I've played or done PvP in MMOs, I think it's just the systems haven't felt good to me. But from any other game where I played against players, it felt pretty good. So I think as long as they can nail that, like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, I know. Like there's a lot of things of why I'm just really just excited for this game. And again, just because I feel like we've been ramping up, and we haven't even talked about like the range basic attacks yet. We didn't talk about like basic melee or any of that stuff. And I have seen your videos. I've seen you talk about it. I've seen how excited you were about it. I mean, airstrike, freaking amazing.
Dude, so good.
It's so good. You know what I mean?
I think that too can also shut down because I think some of the direction they had gone before with the art style, doing a lot of particle effects and things. And when you saw that was a very like grounded effect. You didn't see a lot of like,
showiness,
particles or anything. I was like, I was like, that is completely different from other things we have seen. It's just, I was not expecting that when that popped off. And I remember Annie was like, "Oh my god," she really gets like very excited about something. But I remember we're watching it and she was like, "Holy shit." I was like, "Wow." Dude, I was like, "You're definitely excited about it."
I've never, in many MMOs that I've tried, and you probably tried way more MMOs than I have, I've never seen an ability like that. And it just looked,
not one that I can think of that was like where you get that distance, you get that.
Like, the vaulting, it's like a Legolas move, dude.
See, like how you could maybe like augment that with a rogue, where you get like maybe the effect's still going, but you teleport or something. I was there's so many cool things you could do with this. I'm just like, because it seems like even there's been like this whole shift of art style or maybe not a shift of art style, but a coming into it, like with how the character models, how they kind of
Been
really all
updating.
have a cohesive kind of aesthetic where everything kind
Well,
of looks
now
like
they
it fits in
do.
the world.
Now they do.
Yeah,
They've
now
been
they do. Yeah,
before they kind of like, there was a lot of people that are like, why is someone going to play the Valoon against the Kalar? And now
right,
the Valoon are going to have these Jin Scar ethereal
right.
influence, and I'm like, that's badass. Like,
Right, I
yes.
was like, oh my god. I was like, yeah, I'm seeing all these different, like, now they're like, fleshing this out. And I think
Mhm.
before they had said something too of that they had like a binder where they were really building out the
Right.
culture and everything, but actually seeing that aesthetic and like
Right.
you're kind of getting this better idea of like how things are gonna look. And like, man, even the art, because even like, because going into Alpha 1, I'm like, I don't know how this game's gonna look. Like in my head, I'm like, I've seen the alpha stuff, but I really don't know what the art style or the direction that's heading into. And then like these past few showcases, I'm like, I'm really starting to see where you guys are heading and like making this. I'm like, this thing is, there's a lot of people with our show of like, you guys haven't been doing a lot of criticism or like, analyzing both sides. It's like, man, I really don't have anything off the last few streams. Everything's been, in my eyes, really fucking good. And I'm like, I don't have any negative things to say at the moment.
It's like I find myself playing devil's advocate a lot because I'm the same way. Like everything that I've been seeing, I personally really love. But when I see comments, I can sort of see where they're coming from. And a lot of action people, a lot of New World people were like really upset.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're very upset.
They were like, I wanted it. Yeah, like and again, like I personally, and this is just me, I always thought that there were going to be specific abilities that only cater to a specific type, meaning action or tab. So like when I see the snipe ability, me personally, even as a tab player of 15 years, that should be an action only ability and you should aim it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and
I could definitely see that of why there was that upset with that.
Right. And again, like I just feel like there should be I feel like the whole everything needs to be a risk reward is kind of like just weird. Like not every single aspect of this game needs to have a risk reward component to it. But all I'm saying is that for snipe, it would be cool if you actually aimed it because you are sniping.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And again, you could add some different modifiers, but if you want to be 80% tab on your abilities and then 20% action, then that's where people were talking about the basic attack having modifiers and additional thing for being in action mode. Well, what if the ability itself had that component built in because it's an action only ability? I would personally be more cool with that than messing with the basic weapon attack, because I think the basic weapon attack should just be what it is. It's basic. And I feel like just in myself, like having to aim every single basic attack just seems kind of obnoxious, but that's me as a tab player. I know as an action person,
played other games like that and it does not feel good.
Right. It does not feel good. And again, I know for myself, I would be down to aim certain abilities for that 5-head Giga play where, hey, like they just use their cooldowns or whatever, and then I hit my snipe ability, I freaking aim, I hit him on, above the chest or, whatever, the heart, the head, whatever the case is, and just have whatever modifiers there is, and I kill that person. That's awesome. You know what I mean? And I feel like there could be certain abilities that are hybrid, that you could use it in tab or action. However, it works differently depending on what you use it as. So there may be additional modifiers on the action side compared to the tab side, but you can use that same ability both ways. Like that's kind of what I always thought what they meant by hybrid, was that it was just going to work differently depending on what your style of choice was.
Yeah, so I think they probably all come down to how interpretation was, because I had a completely different thought process going into that.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Where I thought it would be more aligned, more along the lines of Guild Wars 2. So when I heard hybrid, that's where my head went. Right. Rather than I didn't even think of like actually having to aim a bow or things like that.
Right.
And I do realize I probably made some insensitive comments in one of our streams because I did have some people that were upset about that, and because I guess I was so blindsided by the fact that there were people that were thinking of like you'd actually have to aim and lead out things, and that confusion also may have came from APOC and stuff like that, of people testing in there, because I'm pretty sure you had to aim with that stuff. And then in Alpha 1 we did have the wand, which was a ranged thing, and I'm pretty sure you could either tab target
or aim it.
do the range, but I can't remember. I never used the wand, so I don't know if
it was OP as hell.
Track. Yeah, I know. I saw it began kind of the mage meta towards the end of everything. Everyone using a wand, and I refused to fall into it. I kept playing tank the whole time. I love tanking.
I got you.
But yeah, so I could definitely understand why that crowd would get upset, especially based off the premise of, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to be either able to tab, or I'm gonna actually be able to control everything. And in my head, when that had been brought up, because I know earlier on, like following that had been brought up, like I don't understand how. I get that you would have benefits, right? Or with that, if there was more risk to doing a aimed attack versus just tabbing it, and maybe one would have more damage than the other. But then, like I'm thinking about more and more, I'm like, it really feels like two different systems. And the more I thought about it, like, it really doesn't seem like those two would coexist right next to each other, unless you're taking like certain abilities do this or certain do that. And I personally, at this point, because I am such a proponent of the hybrid system, I'm like, why have tab? And I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I really like the idea of that hybrid system where, you have a bit of that action, because a lot of times too, I play melee. So I'm already getting what I want out of it.
Right.
So where I don't play range classes. I don't do a lot of magic or anything like that.
Action
so
feels
I
really good in melee. Yeah. It just,
right. So I already have a bias on that where I didn't really think of that side because I never play that side. So I could understand why people would be upset in that. But the more I thought about it too, I'm like, I really feel like for MMOs, that hybrid system seems to be that sweet spot.
We got to test the combat a lot. We got to see what feels good. But I do agree with you. The hybrid system is probably the way to go. For me, I play everything. I play tank, I play healer, I play range, I play melee. And I feel predominantly, I love ranged. And I think tab, especially when it comes to healing, you need tab when it comes to healing. Because if you ever
I'll go definitely see that.
If you heal a new world, you will understand why you need tab. Because it is just really frustrating to heal, aiming everything. So I just want to say, I can't believe we've already been talking for almost an hour. But Jamie, dude, thank you so much for coming on and just having this chat and just being a part of the Ashes community, doing your podcast, streaming Ashes. We need more people. I wish I can stream. I'm going to start trying to stream, even if it's for like 2 hours, hopefully probably in January. Right now, fourth quarter for me is so extraordinarily busy that I don't think I could. But I'm really glad that you're there. I'm really glad I'm seeing your content. It's great. I love different perspectives. So yeah, keep doing it.
Ironically, I watched this like essay by now I'm blanking on his name. Josh Strife.
Oh yeah.
I watched a video essay about how he was saying there needs to be more creators in the MMO space, and that's actually one of the things that inspired me to be like, all right, maybe I should find a way to do this. So thanks Josh, also
thanks,
for
Josh.
helping me with my most viewed video, and also getting me in the space.
Yeah, no, for sure. And where can people find you? I'll link your YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. What do you want me to link?
YouTube thing's been weird because we met the requirement, but I still can't add a custom URL to that. So you can just search for Tangents of Creation.
Yep.
And that'll
I'll
pop
have it in
up
the
there.
description.
You can find Tangents of Creation on all the different podcasting spots like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And then on any of the socials for me, you can find me at Jamie Kaos, all one word. Same thing on Twitch. So either search for Jamie Kaos or Tangents of Creation, you'll find us.
And they will be in the description below if you want to find more of his content and talk Ashes of Creation. Jamie, again, thank you so much for being on the 1v1 and having this really awesome talk. I had a great time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
No problem. And if you like this episode, hit that thumbs up. It helps the YouTube algorithm push out our podcast to more and more people so we can spread the word on the good word about Ashes of Creation to more and more of our casual MMO players that are probably still apprehensive and nervous. They shouldn't be. They should be excited. And me and Jamie will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy, guys.